วัสดีค่ะ Welcome back to Bitazza Invites Ask Me Anything with Bitazza. We are here today for one of the most anticipated guest speakers that we've had from Axie Infinity. I am Didi, the Chief Communications Officer of Bitazza. We have many special guests today, but before we move on, let me say hello in Thai to our local audience. สวัสดีค่ะเพื่อนๆชาวบิทัสซ่าทุกคนนะคะวันนี้ดีดีก็กลับมาแล้วนะคะมากับรายการ Ask Me Anything กับบิทัสซ่านะคะถามอะไรก็ได้ก็วันนี้แน่นอนเรามีแขกรับเชิญพิเศษสุดๆเลยนะคะจาก Axie Infinity นะคะแล้วก็ขอบคุณเพื่อนๆทุกคนที่ส่งคำถามกันเข้ามาร่วมสนุกนะคะเราจะถามคำถามตอนช่วงสุดท้ายนะคะก็เนื่องจากวันนี้แขกรับเชิญเราเป็นชาวต่างชาติเราก็จะมีการคุยกันเป็นภาษาอังกฤษแต่ว่าเดี๋ยวดีดีแล้วก็คุณอาร์ตCEO ของเราเนี่ยจะมีการเล่นวิดีโออันนี้แล้วก็อธิบายว่าเราคุยอะไรกันให้เพื่อนๆฟังนะคะเพราะฉะนั้นไม่ต้องห่วงเลยค่ะว่าวันนี้เรื่องภาษาจะเป็นจุดกั้นให้เราไม่เข้าใจกันนะคะก็ยังไงอย่าเพิ่งไปไหนนะคะตามดูวิดีโอกันก่อนได้ค่ะก็ขอบคุณมากเลยนะคะที่วันนี้มาร่วมดูอันนี้ด้วยกันนะคะ Okay guys so without further ado let me invite my first guest of courseคุณกวินพงษ์พันเดชา or Art our CEO and co-founder Hi Art you're on mute
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับทุกท่านครับ Hello everyone I'm very excited to be here Thank you
Hi okay and of course our second guest is actually he represents many different brands but today he is here on behalf of GuildFi which is Thailand's biggest Axie Infinity guild right now as well he's the CEO of Bitcoin Addict Thailand amongst many things. So we have here today Rit. Hi Rit. You're also on mute. Oh hi.
สวัสดีครับทุกคนก็เจอกันอีกแล้วครับก็เดี๋ยวเราวันนี้น่าจะสนุกกันครับ
Okay, and next up, of course, Jeffrey Zerlin, or as known as Jiho Axie. He is the co-founder and growth lead of Axie Infinity. Hi, Jiho.
Hi, Didi. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm super excited to be here. We love Thailand. So yeah.
Where are you based right now? Let us know.
I'm in San Francisco. But I have been living in Asia predominantly for the last 3 years or so.
So we are catching you at the most perfect time.
It's 6 a.m. over here, so nice and early.
So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. And last but not least, Andrew Campbell or ZyoriTV, the program lead, ESport, and content creator of Axie Infinity, and just many other things. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, excited to be here and excited to talk Axie Infinity with the Thai audience. Yeah, I'm the esports guy, and I also work with content creators, develop those programs, and I'm always excited to meet new global creators. So very excited for this. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. Really, this is some of the really amazing times of our lives to see something that started out what seemingly was a trend, but now is a huge movement, and not just for Thailand or Asia, but all around the world. Actually, Axie Infinity has taught us many new vocabulary, including play to earn, and we're so excited. So because we have so many guests today, I'm gonna take the backstage, but I'll be back for the 10 questions that we selected from over 200 submissions from our community here in Thailand. And as I was giving you guys a little brief that the community here is super big, it's super strong and devoted. So enjoy your discussion, guys, and I'll see you towards the end.
Right. Thank you, Didi. So I guess the first thing that, I mean, Axie Infinity needs no introduction, but can you just run through a little bit of, your history, like starting from, I know I've listened to your interviews in the past. You started with like crypto kitties and like NFTs back in the days before, people even knew what NFTs were. So could you at least, give us a little bit of picture of how it got started?
Sure. So our goal with Axie is to introduce the world to an exciting but sometimes scary new technology through something that's fun and relatable and a bit nostalgic. So Axie and Sky Mavis, we have 5 co-founders. 3 of us actually met playing CryptoKitties, which was, I guess, one of the early NFT games. So, when we discovered it, we thought, okay, finally, this is an interesting application of the technology that's not just about, right, like Bitcoin price and ICOs. It was something that was usable and fun and social. So yeah, we got really interested in NFTs and started to think about the future. So Trung and Masamune, they kind of invented this idea of Axie, and I actually found it as a community member, and the art was amazing, and I thought the idea of a game where you could battle and collect and do so much more than just actually use your NFTs and turn your time and effort into real value. I think that's really what unified us in the early days.
Right. And could you tell us a little bit about the community at the beginning? Because, right now we hear really massive numbers, Axie Infinity. Some people might even think it's like an overnight success, but I know you've come a long way. Maybe can you explain a little bit about the community at the beginning? How was it like?
Yeah, I think we've always known that the community for Axie was really special. So since the beginning, even when there were only 20 people in our Discord chat, people were dreaming about the future, talking about the future of the game, what they want to see, giving really important feedback to the team. People were making amazing content. They were making like music videos, getting tattoos, making amazing art and sculptures and paintings. And so the community was so creative and so helpful and so engaged, and people never left, right? So it was, even when growth was slow, we were only ever gaining people. We weren't ever leaking people. So yeah, I think, we've always believed that the community was special, and over time, slow growth and special community would get us to a turning point. So.
Right. And what was it like? Like what was the turning point where you realized that, okay, everything started, exploding in numbers? Was it like because of something you did? Like, what was it, that accelerated growth for you guys? Was it just like something you did, launching of something, or like, what was it that like caused you to go from 20 people to 1 million people, over 1 million people even today?
I think maybe Andrew wants to.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the scholarships were really the key thing that enabled us to make that jump. So I'm newer to the team. I've been with Sky Mavis for 4.5 months now. And it was sort of a slow onboarding process because there was so much to learn and such a robust community to understand and engage with for me to be able to understand the scope of my job fully. When I came on, I think we had like 50,000 daily active users. We were growing quickly. Like we hit 60,000 surprisingly fast. And it seemed like right as I was coming on board and looking at those numbers, that was when the explosion really happened, where we hit 100,000 and then 200,000. And before we knew it, we were at 500,000. And then the big million number was right there in sight. And we hit that, I think, even before August of this year in 2021. the scholarship program is this really cool idea where players that have a large Axie collection, you can really only utilize a couple of them at a time. 3 play on a team, and you can only play with 3 in any one given battle. So you have all these extra Axies sitting around. You can put those on separate accounts, and because of the nature of blockchain, you can pretty safely, in a sort of a trustless nature, give somebody access to that on the other side of the world. They can then use those Axies to play the game, and you can split the rewards. The manager, so to speak, that provides the Axies usually gets a smaller percentage, and the scholar or the actual player gets a higher percentage because they're the ones that are putting in the actual hours and doing the work. And it ends up being this great mutually beneficial arrangement, and kind of translates to an uncollateralized, trustless loan where players with a lot of Axies can very safely loan them out to other players and extend the reach. And yeah, that's created opportunities like never before. I don't know that you've ever been able to hand over valuable assets. Like a set of Axies could cost as much as, you know, $900 USD, $1,000 USD. Hard to find another situation where you can find a return and utilization on that asset and let somebody else use it without fear of it getting damaged or stolen. Like Axies are infinitely durable in that regard. You know, they don't wear out like a tool or a manufacturing device, right?
Right. And they're actually rare, right? Like Axies are NFTs, and there's a way to reproduce them, and then that's why there's a limit to the population of Axie. So how was it like growing? You know, like managing, because some numbers are actually really crazy. I looked at, you know, the total volume that you guys do. It's actually more than certain GDP, a country's GDP. So to me, Axie Infinity is like a digital nation where you guys are actually like a country where, you know, there's no requirement of, you know, holding a passport, but anyone, you know, anywhere, regardless of where you are, can be part of this community. And so you've grown very quickly to become this one big digital nation, a GDP size of a country. So how is it like managing, you know, the economics of the country, like, you know, figuring out all the little moving pieces so that you ensure that the economy is sustainable going forward? And how do you plan to, you know, introduce new features of, you know, things that could help propel growth forward, like in a sustainable manner? Maybe Gio, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so we've seen that the best way to supercharge the economy is to release upgrades that increase the total capacity of our nation, right? So one of the big catalysts that led to our huge growth was the launch of Ronin, right? So Ronin is our solution to make blockchain fast and easy to use. So we were using Ethereum. It was very slow and congested with high gas fees. And then we basically moved stuff over to Ronin, which allowed our economy to scale. It allowed the scholarship programs to scale by breeding Axies. Sending Axies now became free and cheaper. So yeah, I think there's 2 sides of it. One is at a higher level, releasing transformational features and upgrades to the system that allow for a higher growth rate and just a better experience for our users. So we have things like an exchange or a decentralized exchange that will be native to our platform coming. We have an upgraded battle system, land gameplay. You might think of it as something like a combination of Clash of Clans and Animal Crossing, and maybe Stardew Valley if you're familiar with that. So yeah, I think it's important that, you know, we have this really vibrant pipeline of upgrades to our experience. At the same time, there are more short-term adjustments that we can do, right? Like we can increase or decrease the breeding fee when there are 2 components of the breeding fee, right? There's the SLP as well as the access portion. We can rebalance those ratios relative to each other as well. We can increase or decrease the emission rate of resources or tokens within our game economy. So yeah, it's a balancing act. I think long term, I mean, it's a combination of both things, but I think, I mean, it's most important for us to continue to deliver on our roadmap, because we're at one, you know, there are about 1.3 million people who own Axies right now. Or what is the total demand? How many people are waiting online, waiting for their Axies, right? That's kind of actually one of the sole determinants of the future of the nation. I mean, I think that there are tens of millions of people online who want to play. So that's all like causing demand for Axies. There's only around 4.8 million or around 5 million Axies right now. So it's kind of like I don't know, almost you know, we're opening up slowly to the world as you know, as we upgrade, and I think it's important for us to grow at I guess like a stable rate, or at the right rate for the right time.
And if I could speak to that scarcity a little bit, like one of the really cool elements of Axie is that it's not developer to player transactions for new Axies being sold to new players into the ecosystem. It's in the hands of the existing players to breed Axies that are already there, put them on the marketplace, and new players are buying these Axies from existing players. It's basically all player-to-player transactions, and that's really powerful for a couple of reasons. We see that translate into general confidence in the economy because people feel like they have genuine ownership. They feel like owning assets are actually owning a piece of this digital nation, and having the freedom to sell them and buy them and trade them in a very open fashion on a marketplace, that actually, you see people hold more often than not because they have more confidence, and yeah, they believe in the things that they're actually buying. And that's also translated to player retention rates that are very high, way above industry standards, because, you know, you have to make a big investment to play the game. And if you're going to do that, you're probably going to continue to play and stick around. And, you know, if there's something you don't like, you're more likely to speak up and try to make it a better place than just move on and do something else with your time. So a lot of positive elements there, I think, that sort of create this feedback loop of a really vibrant and passionate community.
Yeah, one thing about that, like when we invest, like when GuildFi start investing in Axie, right, we also thought the same thing about that like we actually just comparing to like other cryptocurrency projects. Axie is like, we own something. We do own the NFT, we do own the land. Just we don't, the investment doesn't like go to like the moon or the zero, right? When we put our money in, it's like there's already like we already own something, and it has some value in it. So no matter if like what gonna happens in the future, this thing gonna value something. Yeah. So I think you did made like really good point about the ownership and like how you feel and you buy those Axies.
Yeah, and even for those scholars, a lot of them, because it's sort of a percentage of labor, in a lot of cases, they make enough that they're able to stash a little bit away and then eventually buy their own team of Axies. So they graduate, if you will. And then from scholar to manager, maybe they're able to buy another set and turn a family member or a close friend into their first scholar. And then from, you know, manager to the beginning of your own scholarship, and it kind of grows from there. So it's not just sort of a simple, hey, here's a little bit of means to an end. It's actually a process that gives people some tools to build upon what they've started. Right.
So I think one of the things that the Philippines had was this managed like scholarship program that is very strong, you know, through, you know, teams like YGG. And I think maybe we want to turn our attention to Thailand a little bit. I know, Rit, you started GuildFi. Can you maybe walk us through like your thought process and like what you see GuildFi's role as, like, you know, developing this play to earn games in Thailand?
Well, first thing is like in Thailand or in anywhere in the world right now, job is like hard to find. Money is like so hard to get right now. So I think first intention, like our very first, is to like improve of like people living. So we start Guild like self-funded, and then give out scholarships. Also, we as Bitcoin Addict and CryptoMine, we always like finding some investment or some tools for people, for communities to like simplify their investment or whatever they do with us, right? So we start Easy Hub as tools for Axie Infinity as well for the managers. I know it's kind of hard to like keep track of all your scholars, so it's just simplify the manager, and it's like helps them like manage their scholarship better. So that's the idea behind the starting. Yep.
Right.
I think it's gonna be huge. The GameFi is gonna be huge, and when the GameFi is like, when the gaming industry like grows, then the GameFi gonna be like on top, and the tools that helps people play is gonna be another layer on the top, on the very top. That's why we are like trying to like make it tools, and also as well with the scholarship. Yeah.
Right. Cool. That's very cool. And coming back to like this idea about like play to earn, I know you guys have some updates on esports. You have the esports server coming up, right? And so with Andrew, you have a background in Dota. Maybe can you explain what Dota did really well, and like how would your experience translate over to Axie? Or what do you see are the parallels between the two communities here?
Yeah, definitely. One of the big like high level parallels is enabling third parties and people within the ecosystem to be entrepreneurial, monetize their efforts, and be able to thrive in the ecosystem. I think when you look at the Dota space, you have like this workshop where artists can contribute suggestions. If you've ever been to TI, you have this giant secret shop. A lot of those t-shirts are from the workshop that artists created, submitted, were voted on by the community, and ultimately accepted by Valve to be part of that distribution pipeline. You saw the same thing in Dota tournaments with cosmetics and digital tickets, teams being able to get branded items into the game and being able to endorse specific tournaments on this esports circuit that has third-party events, but major support from Valve when it comes to prize pools and marketing, and that stamp of approval when you're talking about qualifier points that lead to that final Super Bowl, giant international kind of world finals. So I think that's very much aligned with kind of our general ethos of trying to enable people. We want to build this sandbox, this platform that other creative community folks can build within. And you mentioned layers. I think we very much agree with that general approach. That's sort of the SDK or the map editor, if you will, in LAN gameplay. That'll open up ways for our community to create games, and just like Dota was created in Warcraft 3, maybe there's some great game that'll be created with the Axie SDK in our Lunassian land. Who knows, right? The sky's the limit when it comes to community creativity. So we want to tap into that as much as we can. And I think there's some intersection with creators and esports in terms of telling those stories, highlighting some of our best community members. And I guess also remember that part of our esports strategy, we have AXS in the treasury. And right now, Axie Infinity is controlled by Sky Mavis, but over time, Axie Infinity will become more and more decentralized and become governed by the players, aka the AXS token holders. So having AXS as prize distributions for our esports programs, that's a really good way to get those tokens into the hands of players that are dedicated to the ecosystem, people that are closer to missionaries rather than mercenaries, that are developing the meta, building these competitive strategies. I think we're seeing that there's a surprising amount of depth in the current battles of Axie, and this is kind of just the tip of the iceberg of some of the gameplay we have in store.
Mm-hmm. Well, that sounds very interesting because, like I've always been, I'm a fan of Dota, and what they did really well was like to create that community around it. Mm-hmm. But it almost felt like, you don't really own piece of, the game. It's like, it's like 100% taxed by the company, right? And then whatever that the company earns, they give back based on whatever they feel like to. But the way that the Axie works is that you guys actually give back, like it's more like 95% owned by the user because you only charge like 4% tax. So for those who don't know, whatever fees are generated on the system, 4 point something percent is given to the protocol, and then whatever is left is given to the user. So that model, like, how can you explain like the rationale behind like giving back so much to the community?
So the idea, right, is that when you give people freedom, when you give people property rights and ownership, they begin to behave in amazing ways. You cannot necessarily predict. We didn't necessarily predict all of the implications or all of the things that our community would do once we give them more ownership, but we thought that it might be good. And I think our bet was that it's a good business decision too, that if you give your community more ownership, they are going to evangelize they're going to be more motivated to evangelize, create content, onboard their friends and family. Right. So this is something that it's not just us, right? It's not scalable for us to be the only ones really vested in trying to expand this movement. It needs to be a community effort. Everyone needs to be aligned, right? So this is our way of aligning our interests with the community. So I think, yeah, this is one of the reasons that our community is so amazing, is that the incentive structure is also kind of facilitating it. So I think it's a new way of doing things. It's a little bit hard for many people, especially even people in the games industry, to grasp, right? Because it's giving more control. I'm giving up a lot of power as a game inventor, the game creator. But yeah, we think that it's the future. We think that this is going to change the way that games are operated for forever.
Talking about the gameplay, right? I think we see that Axie is gonna have like lands, items. Like, can you share something about those, like some tips about those like lands or items? What gonna happen with it? I mean, we do hold like some mystic land as well. So you would like to know if like what's gonna happen to our land.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about land, right? Like, we're building, obviously, our goal is to build an amazing experience that also gives more ownership, more agency to our landholders. There is a very large play to earn allocation, right? So then people start thinking like, oh, like how much of that will be allocated to the land system, right? So these are all things that we have to think about very deeply and carefully. I can't really necessarily say we're actually, we're always building, maybe tweaking things, adjusting things with land. So the full picture is probably not even clear yet. I think that's part of the awesome part, is that it's continuously developing. We were just making some key additions to our internal land team as well. So the way that Sky Mavis works is we have many different internal teams. We have one team that's working on battles, one team that's working on land, right? We have the art team churning out content for both of these teams. You have the product team, right? That's also making like our web app, right? Like, so the marketplace, maybe the staking dashboard, the DEX. So we have all these internal different internal priorities and projects. So yeah, land is definitely one of the most important.
I think the mystery around land is part of the fun. I mean, I'm pretty siloed from it, so I don't really have much to leak, even if I wanted to. But I get that question a lot as the community creator. You'd be surprised at how many esports calls with really high profile people start with, "Hey man, what can you tell me about land gameplay?" So people are really excited about it, but it feels like that mystery and that wonder and that speculation, at least for now, it is definitely some of the fun. So enjoy it while you can, because I think land will be here before we know it, and then a lot of the surprises will be gone.
Yep. So
Good answer.
yeah, so I didn't get any hint on that. anyway, yeah, I think there's gonna be quite fun. I was like looking forward for the land, hopefully the mystic, and then like the price gonna jump like a lot. We have been like holding for I think 2-3 months. I bought like 6 of the mystic lands. Yep.
Nice, yeah. I think land has been around for almost 3 years now. It's maybe 2.75 years almost. So.
Wow.
Wow. So I see a lot of like the theme that I'm seeing here is evolution. You guys, evolve quite a bit from the early days to now, and now you guys gonna have land. You guys gonna have more fun stuff that coming up. So this like evolution in the meta, like who's behind all these, the decision making. Like I know you guys also have a lot of emphasis now on the PvP, player versus player now. Prior to that, you had player versus environment, but like now you're placing more emphasis on PvP. So all of these meta evolution, is that done by like some simulation, or is it like by a decision by the community? And when as Axie Infinity becomes more decentralized, will you give that decision to the community to vote on? Like how does that work?
Well, so we look at a lot of data. And I do think that the community is voting, right? Because they vote with their actions. So we see what's being used, overused, underused. So the simulation is happening, right? So the simulation it's live, it's in production.
We're in it right now.
Yeah. This is the simulation. So yeah, so we do look at it. We do look at the data. I think long term, maybe opening it up to be, maybe we could have a special governance aspect, right, where people make proposals for the balancing. We do have a lot of community suggestions around balancing, and we do take a look at them. And sometimes we kind of source ideas from it. It's a combination of, it's a combination of looking at the data, maybe looking at suggestions from the community. It's not perfect. No system is perfect. I think that Axie is reasonably balanced. I think whenever there's always a meta, whenever something might be overpowered, you chop it down, and then all of a sudden there's a new suite of abilities that are now in vogue, right? So, but I think that's part of the fun. This creates new breeding goals for people. It spices up the game. So. There's some people right in the beginning, they're like, how can you have changes in a blockchain game? Everything needs to be immutable. Like, haven't you ever heard of how Vitalik got upset about his warlock? But yeah, we don't believe in that. We believe in constant evolution. We think that keeps the game interesting. And there are a lot other ways to kind of express our kind of loyalty to the concept of decentralization, if that makes sense.
I would tack on as well that I think, although we don't believe in that immutability when it comes to game balance, we wield the responsibility, like we consider it a strong responsibility, right? Like we understand that there's economic investments tied, and while we feel justified in saying at all times anything can change at any point, we still don't want to just completely rework stuff if we can avoid it. We want to try to keep things in the spirit of how they're designed. And maybe it doesn't have a utility right now. Maybe it'll have a utility in the future. And that's a part of the evolution there. But yeah, I guess I wouldn't want to imply that we just sort of change things willy-nilly or just, hey, this skill's no good. How about we roll the old dice and see what comes out this time? It's definitely very tactful and done with a lot of specificity and tact. Yeah,
I think we're zeroing in and getting closer to almost right. So I remember when we first did balancing for the current battle system, oftentimes we would have to move the skills up and down maybe 20 to 30%, and it's now we can adjust things 5 or 10% in terms of the stats, and can have quite a difference. So that's one of my gauges or ways of kind of monitoring whether, right, like the system is reasonably balanced when small changes can have impacts on behavior.
Yep, I think I've seen like the stats, right? And I think most of the players right now are having plant as their like tank. Like everyone's using plant. So maybe I think there might be some change in the future or something like that. Like I see the stress like everyone is basically almost everyone is like having a plant. Yeah.
They are one of go ahead.
And I think in one of the things that we're looking at in Battles V2 is like, right, like how can we have more variety in the archetypes? So that might mean like more viable tanks as well.
Yeah. Also looking forward for like a voting system with Axies. So it looks like an Axie town with all the Axies has like one vote each or something like that. It's gonna be quite cute and fun. Like one Axie per vote or something.
Yeah, voting, and right. This is all interesting stuff that has not necessarily been figured out in blockchain in general, right? Like, how do you have a Sybil resistant system? Like token weighted voting systems, right? They're kind of they can favor those with a lot of capital. But what about people who have a lot of passion and a lot of time? How do you take into account their feelings, right? So. It's an interesting problem.
Yep.
Some combination, right? So some combination. Okay, your stake within the game, and maybe your rank or effort that you've put into the game, right? Something that kind of combines them, or gives value to each of them in isolation, right? This is kind of like the idea behind the Axie score, which is actually something that's briefly mentioned in our white paper, which is basically, okay, like you might have a voting rights based on your Axis token, but that can be amplified or boosted by your interactions within the network. So this is one way of looking at it.
I see like the latest changes, like it just happened when we just start the guild for like a few weeks. I see the change that cuts the daily SLP from 150 to like 75, right? And I want to ask, like, what's the idea behind it? Like, it seems like you guys are more promoting towards the PvE instead of the PvP instead of the PvE or something like that.
Yeah, I can start, then maybe Jeff can chime in since it's a little closer to his wheelhouse. But I think simply put, the adventure was just a little bit too easy before, and the sort of like risk reward ratio for your time was maybe getting a little bit miscalibrated, and especially when it came to automation and potential bot abuse. That's a big problem. And one of the best tools we have to sort of quell that automated abuse is the human element, pitting players against other players. And when you see two humans playing against each other in the arena, they really interact differently than the way bots would interact when they're playing against the automated adventure mode. So I think at a very high level, that's certainly a key piece of it. But Jeff, maybe you could talk about the tokenomics and the other aspects of it.
Yeah, I think so. One of our principles, right, is we want to reward the people who are putting their time and their effort and playing in a really skilled way more than people who are kind of taking the easier path, right? So when we made adventure mode, right, we thought of it as a way for people to get familiar with the game, get familiar with the cards, and then eventually make their way into PvP. But what we were seeing is that people would just stick to adventure mode all the time, and this actually made Arena less fun for new players, right? Because if only veterans are playing Arena, then if a new player actually goes into the arena and wants to try it out, they would be matching up against someone who's not at their skill level. So by recalibrating the incentives so that casual and new players, people who aren't so amazing at Arena, they're more incentivized to experiment and try out Arena. This basically makes Arena more fun for that entire group of players because they're now matching against each other rather than against veterans. So I think a lot of people have also discovered Arena and now love it because of how we've restructured the decision making. So.
Yeah, I think that does makes very good sense in the way. Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of people. Luckily, when we started Guild, we told like the idea behind us was like trying to make sure that every scholar's having fun playing the games. So we did give them quite a good team to start with, and I think that when the patch changes, we didn't affect that much. So I think everyone's still like making ranks, I think average out our guild is like 150, 160 SLP per day anyway with the patch changes. So I think everything looks perfect right now.
Yeah, in general, like ELO and MMR systems work the best when all of the players, or as many players as possible within the system, are pushing the peak of their skill level. Like they're all trying as hard as they can and genuinely trying to win. What we were seeing before, Jeff sort of hinted at, was when the rewards were too high for the daily quest, people would lose intentionally after they were done their quest so that they could go back down. That doesn't take too much time. It's really mindless. Then the next day when the daily quest resets, you can win a bunch of games, 10 in a row, 5 in a row really quickly because you're much lower rating than really you should be. And that's the mechanism that creates a really unfun experience for new players that are, getting unfairly matched up. So when you realign the incentives to push everybody to like, hey, it's more efficient if I just try to play at the highest MMR I can, that helps the whole system at large. And you see this, it's more than a ripple effect. It's like this network effect of Arena just improving across the board from the lowest levels to the highest levels.
Talking about Arena, I mean, I've seen like people asking questions about like if we should like after we run out of energy, should we like just lose like 10 games in a row to like lower their rank so that tomorrow they get like better ranking and it's easier for them to like acquire those like SLPs, something like that. Yeah. So is there going to be like penalty for those like?
I mean, I lose. That is already now. That's now more that's a more punishing now than it used to be. So I think it's really important when you think about these big economies and these big systems. If we make a change, we need to wait enough time to like collect the data and evaluate the effect of the change before we make another one. If you do too many changes on top of each other, it gets really hard to track the effectiveness of any one given change. So I think we're taking steps down that road, and we kind of got to see how the data comes back this season, and maybe I can answer better in a couple months.
Right. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of questions that came in from the users, from everyone viewing at home. So maybe I'll invite Didi back on stage so that she can maybe address some of these questions, and let's see where that takes us. Hey, Didi. I think you're muted. You're muted, Didi.
Didi, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Okay, here we are. Sorry.
Hey.
Okay, I was just saying that the time passed by so quickly because there's so many interesting things that we've discussed, and then also so many great comments come in, letting you guys know that it's like changed their lives. There's some really kind messages, like everyone's so excited to see you guys. So let me go to the questions that we had chosen from the submitted floor. So we ran this campaign together with Rit, with GuildFi as well. So we selected the 10 questions from over 200. Actually, there was someone that mentioned SLP when Bitazza is listing. We do have both AXS and SLP, and we are the only platform in Thailand that offers that, and it just gives us such honor. So let me go to the first question from Kun Jutti Tharakayi. She asked, now with the ever increasing price of each Axie, is that preventing a user from entering the system or entering the game because the budget required to get a quality Axie to battle in the PvP mode is increasing? So like, is that actually preventing new users from coming on board?
Yeah, so that's part of the beauty of the scholarship system as well, is that you have these institutions who can acquire Axies and give them out to lend them out to people that cannot afford them. But yeah, like also the price of Axies doesn't always go up. In fact, like, over the last couple of weeks, they've also it's come down a bit, which, yeah, some people say they love it because it's allowed them to come into the ecosystem. So the price also fluctuates there. So yeah, but in the future, so one of the things that I'm really excited about is we'll have free soulbound Axies where anyone can play the game and learn about it for free. They might not be able to earn anything, but they'll at least be able to understand how the game works and maybe join the community before making any big economic decisions.
Wow, that's great to hear, because this is actually another question from Kun Phongpandecha. She asked that a new player that wishes to enter without sufficient funding or forming a skilled team, would there be any chance for like a starter pack or like a practice game situation? And you just addressed that. That's so amazing. Like, that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, it's been highly requested, and it's just a great way for people to practice, right? You see a lot of scholars, like we've seen videos and pictures of scholars that have flashcards, or they've printed out like physical card versions of Axie so that they can simulate it in real life to practice. And that's amazing. And in a lot of ways, we see that and are kind of blown away by the passion of aspiring scholars to learn and improve their worth in the marketplace. But it also shows that, like, okay, we need a better solution than this, and we can certainly provide one. So very excited for that one to drop.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually, Rit here would know, because he's also involved with this Easy Hub platform that's helping the users, because the language barrier is also quite an important factor, especially all the emerging markets around the world. Then there are all these kind of homemade or passion projects that come up just for the sake of access to information. So that's really, really cool. So I'm going to go to the next question from Kun Sharanda. She's asking the usage of SLP inside the game. Where do you see this going? Will there be more utility? Would it be possible to purchase different items? Are there chances of dressing the Axies, or renting the land, or buying the land, or anything else?
Yeah, Jeff, how much you want to leak here?
The question is around renting land, or
the usage of SLP.
It was sort of, a lot of different suggestions around potential things that you could do with SLP. I think the cosmetics were sort of thrown in there. I guess, is there any thought process behind what else we could do with SLP, or additional
so
utility?
I think a lot of people are super excited, right, for more utility for many of the in-game resources, or the in-game resources like SLP. Why is this, right? Because one of the easy ways to balance the economy is to create new demand for SLP and Axies, right? Axies are actually SLP price is actually, right, like related to Axie demand. So one thing, right, that we've thought about for a long time is one of the best ways to balance the Axie population and to create more demand for Axies is by basically through a crafting system, right? So right now, anyways, in the future, you'll want to upgrade the parts, the body parts of your Axies. In order to do this, you'll need crafting ingredients. And those crafting ingredients, you'll be able to get them from kind of like sending your Axies away, if that makes sense, right? Or retiring them is a good term that I heard. So this will basically act as a way to, okay, you know, some of the large collectors, they may need a lot of Axies, and they'll be, right, sending them away, getting these crafting materials, right? And so this is a way to basically increase demand for Axies from our collector base, our current players, as well as, right, it's kind of like a population control exercise, right? So one of the things that I think about a lot is, why do farm animals, why do they have value if they can, right? There's no supply cap on cows, right? Or sheep, right? There's no supply cap on them. They can breed almost infinitely. But right, there's basically this natural demand or consumption of them, if that makes sense. So Axies in many ways, right, like kind of are behave like this. So. Or where you might even, an easier example is like, you know, a dog, right? It's like, what, you know, why do people spend hundreds of dollars on dogs as well, right?
So Axies are too durable. It's, as I mentioned that earlier, that, you know, there's no risk of them getting, you know, like injured or wearing out when you loan them out to scholars. Now, you're basically, what you're saying is Axies need a life to them. They need a lifespan or something.
Interesting. Because a lot of people grow really just a great bond with their Axies. You know, a lot of them just really spend like so much time, but not just time, just like emotional, just sentiment, which is, you know, kind of inexcusable, really. I mean, look at them, so cute, you know. So that's a really interesting point. Rit, did you want to ask some of the questions that we chose?
Yep, sure. Let me open the questions. So like, there's like, how are you gonna? Okay, there's a lot of questions about the SLP price, like the price dropping. I mean, there's like, I look at the question list and there's like 3 or 4 about SLP dropping. So is there like, do you have any plans for the SLP to like, with land or with the crafting, with basically anything that works with Axie to like more use case for SLP, something like that?
I think so. That was just addressed, right? Basically, in the future, right? Like, we'll also have crafting of Axies, right? So this creates more demand for Axies, more demand for SLP. Yeah, so that's maybe a long-term solution. In the short term, I mean, I understand that people, right? Like, a lot of people, they look at SLP as their source of income. So it can be quite stressful looking at the price of the thing that you get paid in to fluctuate, you know, so much on a daily basis. So I understand that.
Yep.
But in terms of, right, like in terms of balancing it, like, we cannot make knee-jerk decisions. We just need to keep, right, have a long-term view. We need to keep building. We've been here for 4 years, right? So people, it's in the short term, it can be really easy to panic about these economic things that kind of affect your life. Like, so we totally understand that. But yeah, we've been here for 4 years. These are not new issues, right? So yeah, we're you know, the best thing for us to do is take a long-term view and keep working hard. So
yeah. Also, like there's the AXS, right? You need a Axie for AXS for breeding, right? And the price is like just skyrocket in the past few months. So is there going to be any change after that like from 4 to AXS, or is there going to be like other way that you're exploring for breeding or something like that?
Yeah, so I recently tweeted out as well that I think that, okay, even though we did reduce it from 4 to 2, it's still a large or maybe too high portion of the breeding fee. So it's something that we'll look at. Like, you know, we don't like to make knee-jerk decisions, or very, you know, we're not here to necessarily cater to the people who are thinking very, very short term. One of the cool things about Axie is it weeds out people who are thinking very short term. That's kind of like that's a feature, not a bug of the system. So people who are like freaking out and very panicked and nervous, I can kind of understand that. But if maybe it's too much for you, then there are other scholars that would be willing to take your place as well. Yeah, I think like Axie is a good example or a good school for learning how to think long term, learning how to be calm under a lot of stress and pressure. I mean, it is like a real economy, right? So in the real world as well, people, they worry a lot about the economy. But yeah, I think like the long term view is really important, right? And that's about continuously upgrading the experience and making it easier and more fun to play. So
yeah, 100%. Art?
Yeah. I got another question from Kun Siri Pantanakun. So people are wondering, he's wondering that because Axie is an NFT, it should be thinking about the metaverse. Will it be possible to have Axie live outside of the Axie Infinity universe? Could it be part of gameplay for another game outside of Axie Infinity, or will it be just in an open market where people can buy and sell, say on OpenSea? Or what do you have in mind for like this metaverse vision for Axie Infinity?
I think the answer to that is a little bit open-ended, but it definitely ties into potential creator programs and, like I talked about earlier, potential esports programs. When you talk about bringing teams from the traditional esports space into this ecosystem, we've seen some of those big teams experiment with NFTs, mostly in the form of like collectibles and art pieces, but finding meaningful ways to get those teams in on some utility NFTs, I think is potentially really powerful. For me personally, I'm not a huge collector, so utility is really what I look at when I'm judging NFTs. And that's often where I feel like I convince people when I'm trying to play evangelist and convince them that this is the future. It's that utility aspect that really gets people super excited. So I see those cross integrations as essentially forms of utility. You have to do it a little tactfully. I think one of the things that we've thrown out in AMAs and stuff in the past is putting stuff on the blockchain is kind of like minting a piece of your digital soul. Like it's kind of out there forever. It's kind of like marriage in some ways. So something to be done tactfully, thoughtfully, maybe a little bit slowly at times, but absolutely. And I think the SDK, again, to go back to our map editor that'll come out as part of land gameplay, I think that starts to open that door a little bit for different integrations or cross promotions. I agree. I'd love to see some cosmetics for my Axies. When Axie hat, when Axie dress. These are the pressing questions that are on my mind as well.
Okay, that's great. So another question is from Kun Vira. So how do you see yourself competing with traditional games, say on Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and in terms of competition, who do you see as competitors in this space, or if you even consider these traditional games as competitors?
I don't think our view, we have. There's so much, right? Like there's so many people who are interested in getting into this right now, and our user base is so small that we're not necessarily looking or thinking too much about competitors. We're more about thinking about, okay, how can we bring more benefit to our current users and make it easier for them to onboard their friends and family. So yeah, I think in terms of things that we compete with for people's times, it's more like we're competing with different sources of income, different jobs. That might be like being a Grab driver or Gojek, delivery specialist, right? So these kind of gig economy jobs are actually one thing that we kind of compete with, and we compete with other forms of entertainment as well. Traditional pet ownership, right? I'm a digital pet maximalist now, right? Like as a digital nomad, I cannot have a pet. So for me, like my Axies are my pets. Like when I look at, I have kind of, I think that they're cute. I have names for them. They bring me joy. In that way, I feel kind of emotionally attached to them. So there are many things that we compete with kind of for people's emotions and time. but it's not necessarily like extractive. It's not something where we're like, oh, we need to, I don't know, take players from this game, right? I think it's more about just continuing to execute on our roadmap and continuing to empower our users. We might compete with we might compete with people's loyalty to various institutions, if that makes sense. Like I think like a lot of people, they start to see Axie as their home, as their society. So.
I was going to ask, because there's another similar question coming in from Kun Surashet, asking in terms of obviously a lot of blockchain games are coming out, and you answered some of the questions already in terms of the unique selling point of the game, or not even considering competition. But I think I quite like this question, that how do you plan to bring more and more people into the community of Axie Infinity? And I quite like the question because it's focusing on the community side and how you plan to grow this, as well as placing or securing the place at #1 in terms of a blockchain game.
Yeah. One thing that Jeff sort of touched on, I think, that maybe without using these specific words a little bit earlier, we're always trying to think about this balance of missionaries and mercenaries, and both of them play a key role. And mercenaries are a little more akin to folks that are coming in either looking for quick gains and chasing what's popular, whatever everybody's doing at the time. They don't want to miss out, but once the next best thing pops up, they'll kind of shift their attention and move on. That's totally fine, but we certainly don't confuse those people with the missionaries that have been with us through the bear market and were playing the game when there really wasn't much profitability to be had. It was just fun. They enjoyed the challenge of it. They enjoyed the community. And it seems like this kind of group of missionaries that have stuck with us through the years have helped insulate us a little bit as we've grown to maintain some of those community standards, be powerful voices and leaders within the community, kind of be digital role models, if you will. And I think they've been a key part in allowing us to scale and control some of the chaos. And I think you pose an interesting question, because when I was hired 4.5 months ago, that was sort of one of the questions I was tasked with. How do we turn that 60K daily active users into 600K daily active users? And that kind of happened through scholarships before I could even really model out a program. And then my focus became, well, how do we handle all of this inbound and scale this and start translating things and growing these regional communities? So I guess now that we've got all of this demand and all of these people knocking at our door that want to join Axie, and we don't have enough Axies yet, we're focused on trying to step up our communications. We have like plans for a creator referral program that will allow content creators to another avenue potentially to monetize some of their content as they bring new users into the ecosystem. Tools to streamline scholarship programs, like actually through the game client, to make them even more trustless through smart contracts. All these things help secure and kind of deepen the ties within the community. So on a high level, we're still in alpha, and we've got some key tools that we still need to deploy.
That's a very solid answer, and I can understand that you guys also care about the experience of the players, not just expansion, which is so important. So I think that we've answered all of the questions that we selected from the previously listed questions. So I'm gonna go now to some of the questions that are just flowing in endlessly on our Facebook Live. So let me go to the first question. Okay. Kun Itikorn. Hi, Jiho. What is your plan to encounter if the new game release has better graphic and animation and same play to earn model?
Oh, so a different game, right? Not like an Axie game. I mean, people can try and copy our model. They can try and make a better game. But I think one of our advantages is our community, right? Like you cannot really take our community. You cannot go back in time and start building in 2018. And right, like the core of the Axie community are missionaries, as Andrew mentioned, right? Like they are people who were in it before it was about like making large amounts of money. So the core of our community, they have been here kind of through really difficult times, and they have a very long-term outlook and vision. So it's kind of like, you know, just like Ethereum, right? There are many actually chains, smart contract platforms that are easier to use and work better, but they cannot like overtake Ethereum. They need to be 10x better, actually, right? So there's this idea of, right, like if you're trying to disrupt the status quo, we are the status quo within play to earn. If you want to disrupt us, you need to be 10x better. You can't just be, right, like slightly better.
That's amazing. That's so true. And also, like, how can you neglect your Axies, right? You've been like racing them, you've been spending so much time with them. Abandoning your pet would you know, that whole sentiment thing would come into play here, I think. The next question, Kunapon asked, in your opinion, how long before the recent SLP adjustment will start showing significant effects on the mint and burn ratio?
That's another good question for Jeff, I think. The tokenomics stuff is not my wheelhouse, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, so we've actually started to see that the SLP mint rate per active user has started to come down in recent days. Right now, the ratio is a little bit skewed, but if you look at the historical data, burning half of the SLP that's emitted each day, it's not actually too bad. We actually do need some SLP in the system for the future if, you know, there's a supply shock or a sudden increase in demand for either Axies or SLP. So yeah, we'll keep taking a look at the data. Like, you know, I think it's okay to let the data kind of accumulate. And yeah, you know, like a lot of people have been requesting like urgent action or an urgent you know, reduction in the access portion of the breeding fee and an increase in the SLP portion of the breeding fee. I think that's like a relatively good prescription, actually. I think it's reasonable, but I don't think it ever makes sense to rush these types of decisions.
I think on a really simple level, just based on some of the inbound I've gotten on social media, it seems like there might be a lot of users that try to evaluate SLP on like a day-to-day basis. Like it's down another 5% in the last 24 hours. And I would encourage you to maybe zoom out your graph a little bit and at the very least look at it on sort of like a weekly basis and certainly more on like a monthly basis. And just consider some of those trend lines in your analysis. Daily does matter. I'm not saying it doesn't, but don't hyper focus on the super short term. Oh my gosh, this week 15%. When in doubt, zoom out a little bit and you know, let that see if that leads your analysis anywhere as well.
as you do in this industry, this entire industry, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they should zoom in more, like a minute graph, so it's stabilized. Like.
Okay. So last questions before we say goodbye and we let you guys go and continue your day. From Camille asking, today I saw the Philippines considering to tax income for our Axie players. How are you planning in the future to register the game or Animoca in different countries, since you make lots of money in various countries? Binance is having all kinds of problems. Do you expect something similar for Axie?
Jeff, you want to take this last one? This also seems closer to your wheelhouse here, bud.
Oh.
Did we lose Jeff? Oh, no. Okay, looks like he's coming back.
He's here.
Might need to repeat, though. Jeff, we got another question that I think is also in your wheelhouse, unfortunately.
I think I saw it. So basically, it's about like, it's about regulatory stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
The Philippines tax.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, yeah, if you know, players, they should report their tax. I believe this is in the terms of service as well, that, you know, if your country that you're living in says that you should pay tax, then you should pay tax to the best of your ability. Yeah, you know, regulatory stuff, it's very interesting, and it's new, right? Like even Visa yesterday, they said that basically NFT laws are very new. They're being developed right now. It's quite unclear. So yeah, you know, we hope to work with nations, I guess physical nations all over the world, to see, you know, how we can work together in a way that makes sense and inspires further innovation.
Yeah, I actually have the last question. I have one more, if you don't mind, before we go. So I think we're really, you know, lucky to be in this time where, like, you know, we're all, you know, just talking and collaborating across the globe, no matter where we are. And Axie has basically just turned, you know, our lives upside down. A lot of us, you know, in Southeast Asia have now, you know, extra income in this pandemic that we're going through. So first of all, I would like to congratulate, you know, all the successes that you've had so far, and just wanted to ask, what do you see Axie Infinity doing in 3 to 5 years? What would be like an ideal outcome for you guys? You know, taking this forward, you guys, you know, revolutionize play to earn. You guys would take this concept that turned everything around, you know, from 100% taxing of online games to like giving it all back to users. And now you're like taking this forward for the next 3 to 5 years. What do you see you guys doing in 3 to 5 years?
Maybe this is one that we can both answer, because I think we have probably slightly different priorities. On my side, I want to see the most robust creator suite when it comes to gaming that we've ever seen. I think the depth in Axie is at the tip of the iceberg. The meta is barely evolved to where it's going to be. I want to see some real esports infrastructure. You know, I want to see some of these recognizable teams bring some of that love into the NFT gaming space. I think there are so many people in esports and traditional gaming that are sort of eyeing NFT gaming, and they're not sure what to make of it right now, but they're starting to get a little bit bullish. And once that floodgate opens, I'm really excited about just how many new eyeballs and new people that's going to bring into our ecosystem, and translating that into once more players see the value proposition of what we have to offer by letting them buy into our economy. I think big growth is going to continue to happen, but I'm really excited about more robust, like actual esports infrastructure. I want to see Axie Pro League. I want to see Axie Pro players. I want to see team versus team rivalries. You know, I want that Navi versus Alliance El Clasico vibe. That's what I'm pushing for.
Yeah, I love that Dota vibe back in the days. Love it.
So I think, yeah, for me, I would like to see a couple things. I would like to see the Axie community become truly famous for the depth of its kindness and its kind of innovative spirit. I would love to see that. I would like to see the play to earn model and more freedom and property rights for gamers become more widely adopted, with obviously Axie and Sky Mavis leading the charge. I would like to see. Yeah, I would like to see in-game economies that are much larger than even some of the largest countries in the world, and I would like to see I would like to see games redefine what it even means to be part of a country or a nation state. I think that people are starting to really identify more with Axie Infinity and our community than sometimes the physical communities or physical groups of people that they're with, right? I think with recent events, right, like people are forced to live inside of their home. They cannot even see the people around them. So this is kind of like a different trend than for most of human history. People have been forced to kind of be friends with and hang out with the people who are physically around them. But now it's like we're in the digital world, right? So we're making friends all across the globe, and we're now, because of blockchain, we're able to not only form deep social relationships, but also deep economic relationships with people all over the world. And this basically, I think, is a fundamental realignment of society. I think that games are leading this, and I think that it's going to have unimaginable consequences. I guess I would like to see people kind of think really responsibly and deeply and carefully about all the implications of this new reordering of society. So.
That's such a beautiful answer. And just on that note, you know, just on behalf of the community here in Thailand and all of the players around the world, like, thank you guys so much for like developing and pushing the limits and driving this new world that, you know, we all get to meet. And exactly as you said, like, you know, we're in the time and age that, you know, things can be difficult. So this is in many ways a way to release or even escape reality to a certain extent, but not only just escaping, but also finding something that is rewarding, like literally rewarding, and just, you know, getting us through the hard times. So on that note, thank you guys so much, Jeffrey and Andrew, for being here all the way from the United States. I know it's very early over there. And also thank you, Rit, for joining us, representing GuildFi, and thank you all the GuildFi fans. Everyone's here. Thank you so much. And it's good to see you, Art. So, you know, keep doing what you're doing. And I hope that we will see each other again. I'm quite sure, because we are quite confident that, you know, Thailand is going to represent. So on that note, I let you guys go on with your day. Good morning again, and good night to Art and Rit ค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. We love Thailand. See you soon.
Thank you.
So